would say, I would say very kind-hearted, very funny, always looking positive and problem solving. So I would put that in one bracket of being a good guy.
Quite easy one, I think. I think Dixie's always someone who tries to do the right thing, doesn't really think twice about it, which is good. It's like, what would Dixie do in this situation? I think he would do that. He's like, I've got to do that. I've got to do the right thing today.
Can you recall like a scenario where you've called on Dixie for something because of him always doing the right thing?
Often like, advice, generic advice, fairly objective advice. Yeah, I think just general advice really, life advice. Probably something from, maybe, I don't know, Pokemon. The Pokemon period was quite memorable, I think.
Elaborate.
I think, just having like, not really being into games and then getting a game where it was designed to be, one person getting one game, one gets another, and obviously us being brothers, it allowed us to have like a combined experience of what would be one or two separate games, if that makes sense. That was quite a good way to bond, especially in car journeys.
How old were you during that Pokemon era?
8 or
Yeah, maybe about 8, up to now.
yeah, I guess there's a few funny times. I'll say something comedy related probably. Maybe us just watching the films and just making fun of them, laughing about them. Always end up with some funny jokes. Sometimes it carries on into other real life situations that will reference the funny moments. I would say, I guess because we have such a good relationship, it's always someone that you can rely on, get advice from, give giving advice, and someone just, having them lower days just bust some jokes. So I guess it's been able to be, you just know you've got someone that you can rely on. I guess because I'm the older brother as well, there's an element of just wanting to set some nice morals and to some degree be a good example. So yeah, I guess it's in the back of my mind, the actions that I'm taking, and as I said, it's nice to know you've got someone that you can rely on to give you good advice in certain situations. So sometimes when I'm a little bit lost, I'll shout it.
Sabian, do you feel like a younger brother?
Not all the time. I feel like
Sometimes I'm the kid.
No, I think a lot of the times it's like having like an older brother to sort of set the pace for certain things, like for example driving and stuff. It was good to have that. Dixie's a bit older, so when he started driving, I was like, alright, that's the frame of reference. So now I should start doing it, and obviously we started doing it around the same time. So those were one of the times that I felt like a younger brother and benefiting from that relationship. And but yeah, a lot of the times it doesn't feel that way. I feel like we are quite similar in age. And obviously the older you get, the smaller that difference means. So, but a lot of the time I feel like a younger brother, but there's a lot of times where it just feels like, just friends, or like, coming from the same period. Having someone who's like a step ahead, if you know what I mean. And I know that Dixie thinks the same way as me. So obviously him approaching scenarios slightly before me kind of gives me a way to look at it from the same frame of reference. Because I know he thinks in the same way. So if I see him go through something, it's like, oh, that's how we approach that. Then I'm able to see that and learn from that. As if it was sort of me going into the future. Do you know what I mean? And experiencing that and coming back with that experience as guidance.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing, it's kind of similar to the previous question for us. I think like the only thing that has kind of changed is that slight age differences become smaller. But I feel like we still kind of have the same humour, spend similar amounts of time together. Obviously when we have the availability, and have the same sort of level of respect. I guess, I don't know. I feel like it hasn't changed much, which I think is a good thing. And if it has changed, it's been sort of slowly just solidifying as opposed to changing shape.
I feel like it's just had like a very good natural progression. I feel like inevitably when you're younger, best friends, teenage years, you're both just trying to find your own thing with your own friends, get a little bit of individuality. And then as we've grown older, obviously we've got a lot closer. And I guess what's nice is we've got older as well. Sabian said we're on similar mindset. So I think as we got older, we started to explore more things like just being more open, more honest, trying to learn from each other and give each other good advice in life as well. Especially as you get older, you start to realise things like work, relationships, stuff like that. As a broad term, I feel for me, I guess I would relate it to pride. I think, a lot of the times people can sometimes feel maybe separate, maybe a little bit different. So acknowledging black love, I feel like people are then taking an opportunity to look at themselves, give more pride, and also just take, I guess, a bit more confidence in who they are as people.
Okay, so being mixed race, do you feel like any part of your journey in life that you felt left out within, like, let's say, like, fully black people, or do you feel that I can't really relate to that, or has anybody made you feel left out?
Fortunately, I haven't really felt left out in that environment. I feel like when I think about the relationships I have with my black friends, family, co-workers, we've always been considered on an equal level. So I'm definitely grateful for not having to experience anything that would make me feel separate or not part of my culture.
Do you think that's due to, like, the area that you live in?
I could definitely be a factor. I've grown up in South London as well, so it's been a very mixed environment, all different types of religions, races, gender preferences, sexuality, stuff like that.
If I had to put words to it, I think my experience of blackness and what black love is comes from a type of reflection on your identity. I think typically blackness has been crafted a lot of the time by, when you see TV and it says like, oh, this is what black culture is, and you have like black Twitter and stuff. But like you said, growing up in South London, there's so many different varieties of people who have different subcultures. So for me, black love, it comes from being able to create your own identity. I feel like a lot of the time, especially me, growing up, dual ethnicity or mixed race or whatever you want to call it, and having a black family which is sometimes distant and didn't necessarily reflect what I saw around me as black culture. So there were two sort of not really polarized views of black culture, but my dad's side of the family, a lot of them were quite religious. He wasn't particularly religious, and he mirrored more of what I saw as black culture, or understood it as
stereotypical type of black culture.
Exactly, he matched those a bit more as opposed to what the majority of my family was like. So there's always a sort of journey trying to work out what it meant, and just along the way realise that black culture is something that you choose, and it's like Dixie said, it's about pride and stuff. This is who I am. I don't have to fit into these stereotypes, and I'm proud of who I am. And I think that pride, separating that pride from your given identity and creating that is black culture. And I think you see that a lot in the music and food and just the culture itself. Is that we're creating this. This isn't something that we've been given.
So do you feel, Sabian, that maybe it was maybe a little bit challenging for you along the way, because there are these like things in the media saying this is how black people should be and this is how black people should act?
I think so. I think a lot of the time when people see me, I say 99% of the time people see me, they'll assume that I'm like Mediterranean or Turkish or Arab. Even at starting this new job, people had that preconception, and it's obviously people will treat you differently because they don't know that, and you can see that when you say, oh yeah, my dad's Caribbean, and like, oh, you can see that change, which obviously some people don't have that. A lot of blackness is about being judged before you have that experience. So I'm able to see that, but also it kind of made it a bit more complex and nuanced how I portrayed my blackness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, was it just, do I just tell people, do I talk a certain way, do I eat a certain type of food? You know, it was interesting. I think that was it still is a journey, which is I find quite empowering.
So when you tell people, yeah, I'm actually from the Caribbean and my mum's English, do they then like start to act? Because for example, when I was in uni, people used to come up to me and be like, yeah, walk on sis and spud me. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So do they then like try and like have these stereotypes that we said how black people are known to act to you then? Or do they just continue to be like, oh, hey, Sabes?
I guess it depends on the person. I think a lot of younger people they sort of give you it's weird, like younger people, I've noticed that they'll immediately give you a tiny bit more like street cred or whatever. You'll meet them and they'll be like, oh, you're right. And I'm like, oh, so where are you from? And then when you say that, they're like, oh, like, do you know what I mean? You can see them open up a bit more of that side of them, which can be nice also. It's like what you said about the whole wild one thing.
But when you say younger people, is it younger people of colour or is it just a broad range?
I guess mainly of colour, I guess.
Okay.
Because I guess they're opening up that side of them, which obviously in certain environments you typically suppress, like in work or something like that. And going off of the work thing, some of the older members of staff, like, when they do find out, I don't really tell people stuff like that. I don't really divulge my, I guess it's personal, what do you call it, protected assets, or they've got like a name now. But yeah, some people, you see them act a bit more, they'll make less risky jokes around you, if you know what I mean. So, which is good, I don't mind that, man. Keep that away, keep that separate.
Yeah.
I do notice the difference.
But that's quite interesting. It's because they keep the less risky jokes quiet, but then it's just like, why say them at all?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. When they think you're Arab or Turkish or whatever, they're happy to make these jokes. But then when they're like, oh, do you know what I mean? That's not.
Yeah, so do you feel that you ever felt a bit left out of within like certain black groups, going to school in like the area, going out, meeting other different types of black people?
I'd say yes, but not any more than from white groups.
Okay.
I guess like for a lot of mixed race people, and I've heard this from some of my friends, that sometimes there is like, you're in between. You know, I never ate pie and mash when I was younger. But obviously having like not a strange family, I didn't really see my family much. So when I did see them, you know, we would have like, you know, roti, rice and peas and stuff like that. A lot of them were vegetarian, so I wouldn't be like eating jerk chicken and stuff. So there was parts of white culture I couldn't empathise with, and parts of black culture. So I didn't necessarily put it on either of the two. I didn't feel like I was, obviously people might see me and assume I can relate more to white culture. They might see I'm Mediterranean, which is still, you know, white, a lot of people's opinion. Maybe less so with black culture. But on the large part, it was kind of the same from both sides.
I've not really thought about it, you know. I've not really thought about it. I guess obviously when you saying it now, thinking about it now, is definitely something that I would want to be mindful of, and also want them to understand as well. But I've not really put any kind of depth or thought into it.
Why do you
I guess it depends on who I'm with as well in terms of what cultures we're inviting into it. For example, if it's an Asian person, then I'd have to consider that as being the teachings of the identity and stuff like that and the culture. In terms of what I would do, I guess just spend time with family. I mean, as Sabian was saying, I guess it's quite nice because the family's quite different in terms of everybody's personalities. So I think it would be good to introduce my child, let them spend time with what would be their great aunties and uncles, just catch the different variants of, you know, job roles, personalities, mindsets, morals, values, so they can understand how broad it is, because, you know, as you were saying earlier, sometimes you get the stereotypes on TV like, oh no girl, or stuff like that, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't want them to grow up and think, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be like in order to meet the expectations of society.
Okay, Sabes, is it something you thought about?
I think so, because I think us coming from a Caribbean background, our dad's side of the family are from Trinidad and St. Vincent. Dixie's gone and not told me about it. We've never been to either of those two islands.
This is like, I went last week.
So it's like or at least my identity or relationship with my blackness has been something that I've not been given. You know, and I feel like I don't know, like we were never really encouraged to sort of divulge in that, you know. Like my dad used to play a lot of like reggae music and jungle and stuff, but I never seen him cook any type of oxtail or nothing. It's just KFC, do you know what I mean? That's American. So I don't know, I think the way I've thought about it, and I think what I try and do is give a broad enough spectrum of what black people are like to say, well, you know, the culture is what you want it to be, you know. You know, it's like this is the stereotypical, you know, attitude and all this and like road mentality that people might assume is black culture. I don't necessarily empathise with as much. Other than living in South London, I know a lot of, you know, black people are into anime.
Yeah.
Or like RPGs, you know, like Japanese role-playing games and stuff like that, and yeah, it just is so much. I'll just try and give a diverse enough experience that I don't want to bottleneck their experiences in life or pigeonhole them. They can sort of be free.
That's it. Do you feel a bit sad that your dad didn't really do that around the house? Or, yeah, is it something you feel that's just a bit missing?
I think beyond actually going to the Caribbean and meeting existing members of my family, I wouldn't say I feel sad because, again, like...
It's what you know kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what you know, and to some extent it might come across artificial because who I am is based on my lived experiences, right? And for him to give me some sort of what he would assume would give us blackness, more blackness, wouldn't be a natural lived experience. It'd be some sort of cultivated thing. And obviously he has taught us about stuff like, you know, when we were younger, I remember him saying stuff like, oh, you know, Caribbeans are they're from Africa, so you've got African blood in you, teach us about Rastafarianism and stuff like that, not massively. But I had that understanding from, you know, primary school. But I don't feel like I missed that. I feel like it's given me a bit more freedom to work it out. It's like not having a guide going through this. It's like I haven't got a guide. Let me walk around and just see, feel things out, which is sort of it's liberating to a certain extent.
Do you feel like the independent study, or not even study, just reflection, has it helped you along the way in like different groups and different conversations?
I think so. I think Dixie would definitely agree. Like our mum, who, you know, is 100% British, she is quite into black culture. So she, you know, I guess living in South London, she doesn't really shy away from that. That's what it's like living around here. So you've got like living in New Cross. You have the New Cross fire, which was, you know, definitely, unless I'm wrong, in my mum's lifetime. I don't know if she was living here at the time. But yeah, definitely actually. But yeah, so she has sort of delved into that. She's told me about a lot of, you know, black artists and like you said, like writers. She was telling me about a black poet called Lem Sisse. And he was raised in foster care, or I think that's the right term, by a white family. So she told me about that, and I watched Small Acts on TV that she recommended watching. And one of them had a similar experience, a writer, I can't remember his name, but it's going to come to me later. But yeah, he was also raised by a white family and then came to live in Brixton, and his joy, like his assimilation into black culture, I could empathise with. So it's like, you know, you're doing the things that you think that you should do. But if you work, do you know what I mean, you're black regardless, you know, that is your black culture, being a black person raised by a white family, regardless whether you've seen Brixton before.
Exactly. That's amazing. So you feel like your mum's done like quite a good job just trying to like keep you guys engaged in just the spaces, and she's been open to answer questions?
She is a white woman, so she can only understand it from a certain lens. She's given us, I would say, given us tools to be able to do, like you said, a bit more primary research. Obviously, she would never try and understand what it's like to be black. I mean, she would try to understand, but she never say. She could sympathise, but not empathise, of course. And obviously, that's her experience as a white woman, what she sees as black culture from the outside. And like I said, black culture is very, I think it's quite a personal lived experience. But it's good to have that, because again, you know, you're seeing what other people might see the culture as, even though it's a positive. You know, my mum's seen it in a positive way. Don't really follow the negative stereotypes. You do get a bit more of a understanding. It did sort of broaden what I saw of black culture.
Amazing. Okay, we're gonna end there. That was perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaya.